podcast, and I listened to it 100 times on YouTube since the last 3 weeks. Love the show. Stay safe. Gary Ashley from Evansville, Indiana. Well, Gary, I am so thrilled to hear this. Thank you for really embracing crossing over and rediscovering balance. That is exactly what we want to do. Let's be honest, folks. I don't know if we're going to get any more Van Halen. So we got to appreciate what we have. So it might make sense to go back and listen to stuff that maybe you need to give a little closer ear to. And Balance is definitely one of those albums. There's gold in them thar hills, Dave, as they say. So there's some really cool stuff on there. There's a lot of meat on that bone. It's way more than Wham Bam Amsterdam. It's way more than Not Enough. It's way more than Can't Stop Loving You. So go dig your teeth into Balance. I know a lot of people were frustrated at that point, but let me tell you something. It wasn't given the fair shake. I felt like Balance was overlooked. What do you think, Dave?
I'm really glad he had such a positive experience to crossing over.
Yeah.
It was very similar to the first time I heard it, and I was like, wow, this is a B-side? This is like one of the best songs from the sessions.
Unbelievable.
I said it last time, and I'll say it again. I mean, not only is it a great song from that album, even though it wasn't on the album, but from those sessions.
Right.
Not only is it a great Sammy era song, but it's also a great Van Halen song, period. Cannot stress enough how good that song is. So if you haven't heard it lately, after us raving about it, I highly recommend you listen to it.
Absolutely.
All the talk we had earlier about Van Halen being a keyboard band during the Sammy era, this song will dispel any notions that Van Halen had trouble rocking with Sam.
Absolutely. And letter number 8 comes from Heath McCoy, and he says, solid episode, guys. I almost skipped it, as Balance is my least favorite Van Hagar album. I pretty much checked out when it was released. Your episode brought me a new appreciation for it, and I have to go back and give a listen to some of those deep tracks. Heath McCoy. Heath, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Dig in, because we got nothing else coming. Please check out some of those tracks. Seventh Seal, Dave, right? What a fantastic song that is. Feelin', great song there. Lots of good songs. Deja Vu is a nice track. Lots of cool stuff. Aftershock. Great tunes on there. There's some really solid stuff. Big Fat Money, the guitar playing on there. Oh my God, there's so much good stuff on there. Dig in.
Don't tell
please.
me. That's
Don't tell me.
Fantastic
What an
one.
overlooked single. And as I said on the last podcast, poorly released. Bad video. Released between Christmas and New Year's. It got lost in the wash. Come on. Folks, go back. Balance is not only a good album, it's got some great stuff on there. Wow, the sound is so good, and it's so well produced. Do yourself a favor. Like I said in the last pod, listen on earphones. Please get yourself a good set of headphones and put those on. You'll hear the real essence of Balance. Definitely want to check that out. Letter number 9 comes from 5150 Kurt, and this is the quick to the point letter. David says, hey Ray, what you say is true. I heard he was referring to Ray Daniels. Oh, I don't know about that, Kurt. Nah,
that's news to me. I'm
no.
pretty sure it was Ray Charles.
I don't think Sammy would shout out Ray Daniels. He is the last guy Sammy would be shouting out for sure. He was not a big fan of Ray Daniels, so I don't think that's true. Plus, the correlation with the song Can't Stop Loving You by Ray Charles was a big hit for him. Obviously, that makes sense. So we'll put that one to bed. Letter number 10 comes from Willie Williams. He says, one disagreement. To me, I Can't Stop Loving You was so completely awful, I never liked Van Hagar as much as I did before after it. A band killer. Wow, that's a big statement from Willie Williams. Well, listen, in my opinion, I wouldn't call it a band killer. There's nothing wrong with the song. It's a beautifully crafted pop song. I just felt it was a little too poppy and a little too Hallmark to represent that album. There was some really good stuff on that album, some really good guitar and gritty songs, everything. That song was so sunshiny, and it's a good song. It's well crafted, well made, perfect for radio, but I felt like it misrepresented the album. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but they did that song that way on purpose.
No, I know.
They did want,
absolutely.
A sunshiny album.
Yeah, well,
and by the way,
yeah,
Willie Williams, best name ever.
That's right. Willie Williams, that's right. So now letter number 11 comes from John Conklin of the Bronx, the Boogie Down Bronx. Dave, so letter number 11, you guys were also talking about Al's use of Simmons drums. The actual only difference between 1984 drums and 5150 drums is that he used real snare, cymbals, and hi-hats. Simmons kicks and floor toms and roto-toms on 1984, and he swapped the roto-toms out for the Simmons toms on 5150. Those Simmons toms changed everything, though. LOL. 5150 sound is dated, whereas 1984 drums still sound iconic. Here is a pic from the early 1985 5150. The setup looks as if it's still in the 1984 setup. You can make out the rototoms behind the synthesizer. He also said, hey guys, you were commenting that Take Me Back sounded like a Sammy Hagar solo song, but ironically, the intro to Take Me Back was written back in the club days. It was a song called No More Waiting. Here's a link to the YouTube audio bootleg of the band performing it. So here's a clip of Take Me Back. Now here's a clip for No More Waiting. You can tell there's a similarity there, and that's from John.
Oh man, you know what? Good call. Yeah. I totally forgot about that.
Absolutely. And that's
good call.
John Conklin of the Boogie Down Bronx. Thank you, John, for clearing that up. Perhaps it was the swap of the roto-toms for the Simmons toms, and that put it over the top. Take Me Back, although that intro was old, and very much like Mean Streets was an old intro that Eddie tacked on. The song, the meat of the song, sounded like a Sammy Hagar song, a solo Sammy Hagar song, I thought. And letter number 11, Dave. You know we can't do a mailbag without him, so here he is.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's
Midwest fucking Ron. That's right, Midwest fucking Ron. You know you love him. Dave can't live without him. Letter number 12 comes from Midwest fucking Ron. He says, Dave's. And he goes light on us this time, Dave. He goes light. He actually goes straight. He just has a question, which is a little bit of a moosh-boosh here, okay? So he says, have you...
A what?
A moosh-boosh. Look it up.
All right, I'll bite.
Well, a moosh-boosh is like a palate cleanser, a little palate cleanser. So he says here, have you ever heard the keyboard solo version of Right Now? What do you think of it versus the released guitar solo version? So now, what does he mean here? This is the version of Right Now, the guitar solo. Now, this is the version of Right Now with the keyboard solo replacing the guitar solo. Now, that is a nice question, Ron. I want to give you props for that, for pointing this out. I absolutely hate the keyboard solo version, and here's why. I think it takes the balls off the tune. Ed's guitar coming in that song is my favorite part of the song. It is the most musical portion, and now to me, it sounds like a fucking church organ in that section, and it's not even properly mic'd. As you can tell, it's sort of too far in the mix, and it really drops the ball in the middle of this brilliant tune. Why does this exist? I have no idea, but apparently, according to Midwest Ron, because what I did, Dave, was after I got that letter from Ron, I asked him to follow up and clarify. Because I said, there's two versions of Right Now. We all know the guitar version of Right Now. What is with this other version?
Wasn't it released to radio?
He says it was a promo disc that wasn't for sale that I assume was only meant for radio airplay. A friend of mine remembers hearing it in the car and thinking how different it was when you're expecting that guitar solo. So apparently, it was an alternate radio version on a promo disc. But I tell you, it's not even close to the original version. What did you think?
I do prefer the guitar version. I like my Eddie Van Halen playing guitar. But I do remember that version when it came out, because I do remember hearing it on the radio occasionally.
Right.
When they were doing that song. And so it's interesting to hear it with the keyboard solo.
Oh,
because
yeah.
you usually don't hear too many alternate mixes of Van Halen songs.
Yeah, that's true. But David, let me ask you something. Didn't you find the miking off? I found it so low in the mix. It wasn't like that guitar is prominent. It comes out. Like, even if you're going to do a keyboard solo, as opposed to the guitar solo, why is it so far down in the mix?
I think they just slapped it on at the last minute, released it to radio. I don't know, maybe for some of those stations who were like, oh no, the lead guitar is too rocking for us, so the keyboard solo made it a little more mellow and maybe they could get some more airplay on it. Which is interesting because it didn't really help that much in terms of the charts, because I think Right Now, I don't even think it was a top 40 song technically, right?
Yeah, you know what's funny about Right Now, Dave? What's funny about Right Now is it is literally one of the most quintessential Van Hagar era songs, right? I mean, that's
right.
I mean, let's be honest. I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you were to walk up to someone and say, name a Sammy Hagar era Van Halen song, I think that would be the one people say right away.
Yeah, I think that one had the most legs.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
I agree. I mean, it's played at like sporting events and things like that.
It's funny. You talk about movies, for example. Like, there's a movie that might have won 5 Oscars, right? But if it doesn't have the legacy, like, for example, Dances with Wolves won a whole bunch of Oscars, and it was very popular at the time, but it was against Goodfellas in the Oscars, and Goodfellas didn't win the Oscars, but Dances with Wolves did. Goodfellas won 1 Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, but that's besides the point. But Goodfellas has such a legacy, it's like as time goes on, it got bigger with time as time goes on, as opposed to like the time when it came out. You know what I mean?
Right. Same thing with Right Now.
Yeah, that's the other thing with Right Now is very interesting. I'm just looking it up here and see how far it got up.
I think it only charted like number 56 or something like that.
Did it really go that low?
I don't think, well, I could be wrong. You know what? It was kind of like Hot for Teacher. Both of those songs had really good, iconic videos.
Oh, totally.
But in terms of how high they charted on the pop charts, they did not go that high.
No, but you know what it was, though? Like, Hot for Teacher, much like Right Now, has a much longer legacy. Like, for example, people know that song. It's an earmark song. It sort of like has lived on as, a bigger song than it was in its time.
But even at that time, it surprised me how high it did in chart.
Right.
I don't know. It just seemed like I heard it on the radio, certainly on MTV rotation. I don't know. Maybe it was just on the radio stations I was listening to. But either way, whether it charted or not, it certainly made its mark for the Sammy era of the band.
That's for sure. And that wraps up the Mailbag segment. And we are on to our epic discussion on Ted Templeman, a platinum producer's life and music by Greg Renoff and Ted Templeman. It is his autobiography as told to Greg Renoff. Dave and I go into a deep dive discussion on everything Van Halen. So we're talking about Van Halen 1 to 1984, to the VOA album with Sammy, to Eat 'Em and Smile with Dave, Crazy from the Heat with Dave. There's a lot in there. Even the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album, there's all kinds of stuff that Ted was involved in. He produced all those albums we just mentioned. So we have a deep dive discussion on the book. And then we go into a very detailed interview with Greg Renoff, where we ask him all kinds of questions, everything Van Halen related. Now, the book is not just Van Halen, but out of like 460 pages, I think like 160 of them are Van Halen. There's a lot of Van Halen in there. So there's plenty of Van Halen to sink your teeth into, and that is all coming up next. Take a listen.
I kind of expected people were going to dance to this one. I kind of figured that this is going to hit a chord in people because it's rocking, but it's not rock and roll. It makes you feel like movement, but